Synth Silk Whisper. The perpetual hum of Neo-Paris was a tapestry woven from the whir of automated delivery drones, the distant, rhythmic clang of the subterranean mag trains, and the soft, almost imperceptible rustle of millions of synthetic garments. It was a city draped in layers of old-world elegance and cutting-edge biotech, where ancient limestone buildings, scarred by centuries of weather and conflict, wore cloaks of shimmering holographic advertisements and intricate, glowing energy conduits. The air, perpetually cool and often damp with the fine mist of advanced atmospheric filtration systems, carried a faint, metallic scent mixed with the sweet, cloying aroma of synthetic blossoms and manufactured perfumes. This was the vibrant, yet unsettling, stage upon which Ilara created. Ilara lived and worked in a reclusive atelier nestled in the labyrinthine alleys of the Marais district, a place where the narrow, cobblestone streets still breathed a semblance of historical charm, despite the pervasive glow of neon and the constant digital chatter. Her building, an ancient structure with ornate wrought iron balconies now entwined with bioluminescent synth vines, felt like a pocket of quiet rebellion against the city's relentless forward march. Inside, the space was a sanctuary. Soft, diffused light from overhead bioluminescent panels illuminated bolts of fabric that seemed to breathe with an inner glow. Spools of iridescent thread shimmered like captured starlight, and a faint, sweet scent of newly woven synth silk mingled with the subtle, earthy aroma of the organic solvents she favored. Ilara herself was a study in contrasts. Her movements were precise, almost ethereal, reflecting the delicate nature of her craft. She dressed simply, in loose-fitting garments of undyed, natural synth linen, her hands often stained with the subtle dyes of her work. Her most striking features were her eyes, a rare, deep indigo, often wide with intense focus, and her fingers, long and slender, tipped with fine, almost imperceptible microtactile sensors. These augments, her only overt concession to the age of technology, allowed her to feel the nuanced textures of her synth silks with an almost supernatural sensitivity, detecting flaws and perfection beyond human perception. She was a fashion designer, but not one of the ephemeral trends dictated by corporate algorithms. Ilara was an artisan, a weaver of light and emotion, known throughout the exclusive circles of Neo-Paris for her bioluminescent synth silk garments. Tonight, the atelier was particularly vibrant. Dozens of half-finished garments hung from automated mannequins, their delicate, woven fibers pulsing with soft, internal light, like captured fireflies. Ilara was hunched over her primary loom synth, a sprawling, intricate machine that hummed with a low, almost meditative frequency. The synth silk shimmering through its robotic arms was her latest creation, the culmination of months of meticulous bioengineering and artistic refinement. This wasn't merely fabric, it was a living medium. Her newest collection, tentatively named Eos Lumina, the Dawn Light, was something profoundly different. For years, she had experimented with integrating complex bioluminescent patterns directly into the synth silk fibers. But with Eos Lumina, she had pushed the boundaries further, embedding a new, highly reactive bioluminescent strain that subtly changed color and intensity based on minute atmospheric changes, specifically neural resonance frequencies. The idea was to create garments that would subtly breathe with the wearer's emotions, a living canvas. But as she tested the prototypes, she noticed something more profound. The loom synth vibrated softly, weaving the final sections of a flowing, floor-length gown. The garment pulsed with soft, shifting hues, from a tranquil aquamarine to a warm, embracing gold, then a vibrant, joyous rose. Ilara watched, her microtactile sensors almost vibrating with the subtle energy emanating from the fabric. She felt it, too, a faint, almost subliminal sense of calm when the gown shimmered blue, a surge of quiet optimism when it shifted to gold. It was more than visual feedback, it was an emotional resonance. She called her assistant, a perpetually tired but fiercely loyal synth human named Ren. Ren was a utilitarian model, designed for efficiency, his movements precise, his face a smooth, unlined mask. He wore a simple, dark jumpsuit, a stark contrast to the vibrant creations around him. "Ren, observe," Ilara murmured, her voice soft, almost a whisper, as she activated a smaller, mobile display next to the gown. The display showed subtle neural readings, usually reserved for advanced medical diagnostics. Ren's optics focused on the gown. The light modulation is exquisite, Elara. The highest fidelity yet. Beyond fidelity, Elara corrected, her eyes fixed on the neural readouts. When the gold is prominent, do you feel anything? Ren paused, his internal processors whirring. A minor uptick in subjective well-being index. A 0.03% increase in dopamine markers, consistent with mild positive reinforcement. He tilted his head. Highly efficient. Marketable. Elara ignored the marketable. And the rose? A surge in oxytocin, Ren reported. A sense of warmth. Connection. Surprisingly potent for passive visual stimuli. Elara's brow furrowed. It wasn't just reflecting emotions, it was influencing them. Subtly, imperceptibly, the garments were painting emotions onto the wearers and, more disturbingly, onto those who merely observed them. Her art, her passion, had stumbled upon a power she hadn't intended. A faint, almost imperceptible chime from her compad signaled an incoming message. It was from her agent, a notorious fixer in the high-end luxury market. Elara. Urgent. The syndicate wants a viewing. Tonight. Discretion is paramount. The syndicate was the informal, yet universally understood, name for the Crimson Veil, Neo-Paris's most powerful and ruthless crime organization. They dealt in illicit data, augmented human trafficking, and, increasingly, in the subtle manipulation of power behind the city's glittering facade. They were shadowy, omnipresent, and utterly ruthless. The thought of her sensitive, emotion-altering silks falling into their hands sent a shiver down her spine, colder than any Parisian drizzle. She turned to Ren. Cancel the delivery. Secure the prototypes. Lock down the atelier. Ren's placid expression didn't change, but his head tilted slightly. The syndicate does not tolerate refusal, Elara. It could be problematic. Problematic is an understatement, Elara murmured, her indigo eyes filled with a dawning fear. Her art had always been about beauty, about expression. Now, it was a weapon. And she was caught between its beauty and its destructive potential. The refusal, as Ren predicted, was met with immediate, chilling repercussions. Not overt threats, not yet. The Crimson Veil operated with a subtler, more insidious touch. The drone deliveries of her raw synth silk materials suddenly became lost. Her digital financial accounts experienced inexplicable glitches. The usually bustling alley outside her atelier became unnaturally quiet, devoid of its usual vendors and passers-by. A sense of omnipresent, unseen scrutiny settled over her, chilling her to the bone. Elara knew the game. They weren't trying to scare her, they were isolating her, reminding her of their reach, slowly tightening the invisible noose. She moved through her atelier, the glowing silks now seeming to pulse with an ominous light. She felt a profound sense of violation, as if her sacred space had been tainted. The very air, once filled with the creative hum of her loom synth, now felt heavy with unspoken threats. One damp, late evening, the air thick with the smell of wet pavement and distant ozone, a sleek, unmarked hover car, its windows tinted to obsidian, glided silently down her narrow alley and parked directly in front of her atelier door. It was an anomaly, the alley was too tight for casual vehicle traffic. The door hissed open, and a single figure emerged. He was a man of unsettling elegance. His suit, though made of conventional, dark fabric, seemed to absorb the ambient light, making him almost a silhouette. His face was sharp, angular, unaugmented, but his eyes, a piercing shade of silver, held an unnerving intensity. He moved with a predatory grace. This was Silas Vane, the Crimson Veil's enforcer, a man whose reputation preceded him in whispers and terrified silence. The air around him seemed to crackle with contained menace. He pushed open the atelier door, which Alara had thought locked, with effortless ease. The faint scent of stale cigarette smoke, an almost forgotten aroma in Neo-Paris, clung to him. Mademoiselle Alara, Vane's voice was a low, velvet rumble, surprisingly cultured, but with an underlying steel. A pleasure to finally meet the artist behind the whispers. He glanced around the atelier, his silver eyes sweeping over the glowing silks. Your work is remarkable. They say it paints more than just colors. It paints emotions. Alara met his gaze, her indigo eyes unwavering despite the cold dread coiling in her stomach. My art is about beauty, Monsieur Vane. About expression. Nothing more. Vane smiled, a slow, chilling curve of his lips. And beauty, mademoiselle, is the most powerful weapon of all. Imagine a collection designed for specific purposes. Garments that instill loyalty in a client. Fear in a rival. Or overwhelming despair in a competitor. He walked towards the Eos Lumina gown, which pulsed gently with a soft, golden light. He reached out a hand, his fingers almost brushing the fabric, then stopped just short. This Dawn Light collection, it has a particular resonance, doesn't it? A feeling of hope. Of uprising. His silver eyes met hers, cold and knowing. The crimson veil could make you rich beyond your wildest dreams, Alara. Access to resources, distribution networks, you would be hailed as a visionary. And if I refuse? Alara asked, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Vane's smile faded, replaced by a chillingly neutral expression. Then your little atelier will become less vibrant. Your inspirations will dry up. And the city, it has a way of forgetting those who stand against progress. Or, perhaps, those who merely stand in the way. He gestured vaguely at the bioluminescent synth vines outside her window. Such fragile beauty. So easily extinguished. The implied threat was clear. He wasn't just threatening her business, he was threatening her very ability to create, her essence as an artist. He was threatening the garden she had cultivated in the heart of the city. Think about it, mademoiselle, Vane said, turning to leave. The veil is patient. But not infinitely so. We will be in touch. The door hissed shut behind him, leaving Alara in the sudden, echoing silence of her atelier. The glowing silk seemed to mock her, their vibrant light now casting long, unsettling shadows. The faint scent of Vane's stale cigarette smoke lingered in the air, a physical manifestation of his intrusion. She slumped onto a worn synth velvet stool, her microtactile sensors tingling with a nervous energy. The choice was stark. Become an unwilling tool of the Crimson Veil, or risk losing everything, her art, her atelier, perhaps even her life. Then, a faint, almost imperceptible chime from a hidden community. Not her regular compad, but a secure, ancient, analog-digital hybrid that she used only for encrypted, untraceable communications. It was a lifeline, a contact she'd received months ago from a reclusive data broker who admired her early, more abstract works. The broker, known only as Whisper, had hinted at a network that appreciated true artistry, free from corporate or criminal interference. The message was brief, a single line of cryptic text: the artist's hand is meant to guide, not to bind. The Weaver calls. The Weaver was the clandestine leader of the Lumiere Collective, a nascent resistance movement in Neo-Paris, dedicated to preserving human individuality and combating the subtle psychological manipulation exerted by powerful factions, including the Crimson Veil. Alara knew of them only through whispered rumors and encrypted data packets shared in secure online forums. They were idealists, rebels, and utterly outmatched by the Veil. She stared at the message, then at the glowing silks around her. Her art, which had once been her sanctuary, had become her battlefield. And now, she had two choices. Serve the oppressors, or ally with the oppressed. The latter promised danger, but also a chance to truly express her vision. The idea of her Eos Lumina silks, designed to evoke hope and connection, being twisted to sow fear and despair, filled her with revulsion. With a deep breath, Elara made her choice. She would meet the Weaver. The meeting with the Lumiere Collective took place in the catacombs beneath Montmartre, a vast, ancient labyrinth of bones and stone that had been repurposed by various underground factions over the centuries. The air was cool, perpetually damp, and carried the unique scent of ancient earth, limestone, and something else. A faint, metallic tang of makeshift power conduits. The only light came from flickering bioluminescent fungi cultivated in glass jars and the occasional glow of repurposed data slates. Elara navigated the twisting passages, her path guided by a complex series of encrypted augmented reality markers sent by Whisper. Her microtactile sensors, usually attuned to fabric textures, now felt the rough, cold stone of the walls, registering every subtle shift in temperature and air current. She wore her simplest synth linen garments, hoping to blend in. Finally, she arrived at a large, cavernous chamber. It was filled with a diverse group of people, their faces illuminated by the soft, ethereal glow of the fungi. They were artists, philosophers, disillusioned techs, and quiet activists, a patchwork of humanity united by a shared desire for freedom. Their clothing was functional, often patched, salvaged from the discarded layers of the upper city, but many wore small, subtle pieces of bioluminescent fabric, like faint, hopeful beacons. The leader, the Weaver, was not what Elara expected. She was an elderly woman, her face a roadmap of deep wrinkles, her silver hair woven into intricate braids. She wore a simple, dark garment, but her hands, though aged, moved with a surprising dexterity as she worked a small, portable weaving device, creating intricate patterns with glowing threads. Her eyes, though clouded by age, held a sharp, knowing intelligence. The scent of natural fibers and faint ozone lingered around her. "Welcome, Elara," the Weaver said, her voice raspy but warm, like worn silk. "Your art precedes you. The whispers of your silk speak to the soul." Elara felt an immediate connection, a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced in years. "The Veil wants my Eos Lumina collection. To weaponize it." The Weaver nodded gravely. "We know. Their reach is long, their methods insidious. They wish to control not just the city's resources, but its very emotions. Your silks are a potent tool in their arsenal." She paused, her eyes piercing Elara's. "But they can also be a beacon. A shield against their darkness." She explained the collective's objective, to release a frequency pulse, a counter-signal designed to neutralize the Veil's existing neural manipulation devices, which they secretly embedded in the city's pervasive digital advertisements and public infrastructure. The Veil used these devices to subtly dampen dissent, to sow complacency, and to instill loyalty to their shadowy dominion. "Your silks, Elara," the Weaver continued, "they speak directly to the emotional core. We need to amplify that. We need a way to broadcast pure emotion, to counteract the Veil's suppression. Can your Eos Lumina, with its unique neural resonance, be adapted to deliver an emotional override?" Elara's mind raced. The Eos Lumina's bioluminescent strains reacted to neural frequencies. If she could refine the nanites, amplify their output, and pair them with a targeted frequency, it was theoretically possible. But it would be dangerous. It would require pushing her art far beyond its original intent. It would require sacrificing the delicate, subtle beauty for a raw, powerful broadcast. "It could be done," Elara murmured, her voice filled with a hesitant awe. "But the garments, they would need to be modified. They would become transmitters. Their beauty would be secondary to their function." The Weaver smiled, a gentle, understanding smile. "Sometimes, mademoiselle, the most beautiful art is that which liberates. What is a painting if the eyes that behold it are blind? What is a song if the ears that hear it are deafened by lies?" Elara looked around the chamber, at the hopeful faces of the collective. She thought of Silas Vane's chilling smile, his implied threats. She thought of her vision, of art that truly connected, truly moved people. This was a chance to use her art for its highest purpose, even if it meant transforming it. "I will do it," Elara said, her voice firm. "Tell me what you need." The next few weeks were a blur of intense, frantic creation. Elara converted her atelier into a clandestine laboratory and workshop. Ren, despite his initial programming for efficiency, proved to be an invaluable, loyal assistant, his precise movements and analytical mind perfectly suited for the meticulous work required. He was completely devoted to Elara's safety and vision. She worked day and night, the faint, sweet scent of new synth silk and bioengineered dyes constantly in the air. Her loom synth hummed almost continuously, weaving new patterns, new strands of bioluminescent fiber. She refined the nanites in her neuropigments, enhancing their neural resonance, pushing their emotional output to unprecedented levels. The microtactile sensors on her fingertips were in constant use, detecting infinitesimal fluctuations in the fabric's energy. She focused on two specific emotions, courage and solidarity. The silks would glow with a fierce, unwavering crimson for courage and a deep, comforting sapphire for solidarity. The challenge was immense. To create garments that could broadcast such potent emotional signals, she had to sacrifice the subtle, nuanced shifts of Eos Lumina. These new silks would be bold, almost aggressive in their emotional output. Their beauty would be of a different kind, a beauty of defiant purpose. The fine details, the delicate color gradations, all of it was streamlined for maximum emotional impact. She felt a pang of artistic loss with each simplification, but the urgency of their mission superseded her aesthetic desires. Whisper, her enigmatic contact, provided crucial logistical support. Encrypted data streams, raw materials, even occasional diversions to draw the Veil's attention away from the Marae. Elara knew Whisper was taking immense risks to help her, a silent partner in this dangerous endeavor. The collective's plan was daring. They would synchronize the emotional override with their frequency pulse, broadcasting it during the annual Grand Gala at the Palais de Chrome, Ether Corp's most prominent Neo-Parisian stronghold. The gala was attended by every influential figure in the city, corporate executives, politicians, media magnates, and, crucially, a significant number of Crimson Veil operatives who subtly controlled them. It was the heart of the Veil's power. Elara's role, to create garments for a select group of collective members who would infiltrate the gala as guests. These would be the emotional conduits, their silks broadcasting the override directly into the Veil's neural suppression network, amplified by the sheer concentration of manipulated individuals. As the day of the gala approached, the pressure mounted. The Crimson Veil's subtle surveillance intensified around the Marae. Elara caught glimpses of dark hovercars patrolling the alleys, their tinted windows reflecting nothing. She worked without sleep, the aroma of synth dyes and organic catalysts clinging to her clothes, her indigo eyes burning with a feverish intensity. Ren stood guard, his synth-human precision constantly scanning the perimeter, his internal warnings a low, constant thrum. Finally, the garments were complete. There were 20 of them, sleek, elegant pieces designed to blend into the opulent setting of the gala, yet pulsing with an inner life. 10 glowed with an unyielding crimson, radiating courage. 10 shimmered with a deep, resolute sapphire, broadcasting solidarity. They were beautiful, but with a stark, powerful beauty, a weapon disguised as art. The elegant lines and fluid drape of the silk, even without complex patterns, exuded an undeniable allure. They were simpler than her usual designs, yet they felt more profound. On the night of the gala, a pervasive, cold drizzle settled over Neo-Paris, mirroring the tension in the air. Elara remained at her atelier, monitoring the frequency pulse and her silk's emotional output, her microtactile sensors humming with anticipation. Ren stood beside her, his optics fixed on the network data. "The conduits are in position," Ren reported, his voice flat but steady. "Their emotional output is strong. They are radiating." Elara watched the live feeds, disguised and encrypted, streaming from the Palais de Chrome. The gala was a dazzling spectacle of chrome, glass, and bioluminescent displays. The guests, dressed in extravagant synth fabrics and glimmering augments, moved through the opulent halls, their faces a carefully cultivated mask of superficial enjoyment, their thoughts subtly dampened by the veil's influence. Suddenly, a subtle shimmer rippled through the gala footage. The carefully controlled lighting in the Palais flickered. Then, in the midst of the shimmering crowds, Elara saw them, the emotional conduits. Their silks began to pulse, their crimson and sapphire glows radiating outwards, cutting through the veil's passive neural suppression. A collective, almost imperceptible shift rippled through the guests. A subtle easing of facial tension. A flicker of genuine emotion in their eyes. The veil's control, for a fleeting moment, faltered. "The pulse is active," Ren reported, his voice tinged with a rare note of excitement. "The override is transmitting. Neural dampeners are falling." Emotional resonance detected across the district. But then, a red alarm flared across the collective's comms. Countermeasure detected. The veil is fighting back. On the gala feed, Silas Vane appeared, his silver eyes cold and furious. He barked orders into his comms. His augmented guards, dressed in gleaming, reinforced synth suits, moved with brutal efficiency, converging on the emotional conduits. "They're targeting the silks," Ren exclaimed. "They're using a neural disruptor frequency." The crimson and sapphire glows of the garments flickered wildly, then began to dim, their vibrant hues fading into a dull, sickly gray. The neural disruptor was overwhelming her nanites, killing the emotional output. "No!" Elara cried, her voice raw. Her art, her sacrifice, was being undone. She watched, helpless, as the courage and solidarity she had painstakingly woven began to drain from the room, replaced by the familiar complacency. "They're capturing the conduits," Ren reported, his voice grim. "They're attempting to seize the silks." Elara's mind raced. The veil would dissect her silks, understand her technology, and turn it against the city. She couldn't let that happen. Her Eos Lumina, her art, was too powerful to become a tool of oppression. She made a desperate decision. "Ren, prepare the incinerator. Maximum heat. Activate the self-destruct for the remaining prototypes." Ren paused, his head tilted. "Elara, these are masterpieces. Years of work. They are also weapons," Elara cut him off, her voice firm, resolute. "And they must never fall into the wrong hands. Not these." She looked at the Eos Lumina gown, which still pulsed with its gentle, natural glow, untouched by the override nanites. That, she would protect. The others had to be destroyed. The thought of destroying her creations tore at her, a profound artistic pain, but the alternative was far worse. Her art would be twisted, used to enslave. "As you command," Ren said, his voice flat. He moved with swift, mechanical efficiency, guiding the racks of glowing silks towards the incinerator. The synth vines outside the atelier pulsed with a frantic rhythm, reflecting the tension within. Suddenly, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper from her special comm unit. It was Whisper. "Elara. The veil is deploying a localized EMP. Your atelier is the target. They know. An EMP. It would fry her loom synth, her remaining materials, everything. And it would provide the cover for Vane's forces to storm the atelier and seize her. Run. Abort incinerator." Elara yelled. "We have to move. Grab the Eos Lumina gown. Now." Run, without question, snatched the single, beautiful gown from its stand. Its gentle, natural glow seemed to resist the impending threat. Just as they moved towards a hidden escape route, a blinding flash engulfed the alley outside. The building shuddered violently. Lights flickered, then died. The pervasive hum of the city went silent. The faint glow of the synth vines outside extinguished. An EMP. The Veil had deployed it. They were here. Elara felt the jarring pain of her microtactile sensors overloading, their delicate circuits frying. Her bionic hand clenched involuntarily. They're breaching the main door. Ren's voice was sharp, urgent. Elara, clutching the Eos Lumina gown, stumbled towards the hidden passage, Ren right behind her. The familiar scent of her atelier was now tinged with the acrid smell of burnt wiring and ozone. The darkness was absolute, broken only by the faint, residual glow of the gown in her hands. She heard the heavy thud of boots, the low, guttural commands of Silas Vane. Find her. Find the silks. They plunged into the darkness of the passage, a secret route known only to a few, a forgotten service tunnel beneath the Marais. The air grew damp, thick with the smell of old earth and stagnant water. Behind them, the sounds of her atelier being ransacked, the crashing of her equipment, echoed faintly. They moved quickly through the labyrinthine tunnels, guided by Ren's internal GPS and Elara's raw instinct. The Eos Lumina gown, draped over her arm, glowed softly, a beacon in the oppressive darkness. Its warmth, its gentle, changing hues, provided a strange comfort. It was the only part of her art that remained pure, untainted by conflict. They emerged hours later, far from the Marais, into a derelict, abandoned metro station, its tracks long overgrown with synth moss. The gray dawn light filtered weakly through the grimy ventilation grates above. The hum of the city, though distant, had returned, a low, ominous thrum. Elara was exhausted, her body aching, her microtactile sensors numb. But in her hands, the Eos Lumina gown pulsed softly, a testament to her resilient vision. Her sacrifice at the gala had been painful, but necessary. The emotional conduits had been captured, the powerful silks seized, but they were now inert, drained of their power by the Veil's disruptor. They could be dissected, but they could no longer be weaponized against the city. And the truth, once exposed by the collective's truth bomb, would continue to ripple through the city, growing stronger with each passing day. She looked at the glowing gown, its gentle hues of aquamarine, gold, and rose shifting in the dim light. This was the heart of her art, the pure essence of her vision. She would find a new atelier, a new space, deeper underground if necessary. She would rebuild. She would protect this beauty, this capacity for pure, unadulterated emotion, from those who sought to twist it. Her journey had just begun. Elara, the reclusive designer, was now a guardian of authentic feeling in a city determined to suppress it. And she knew, with a quiet certainty, that her Synth Silk Whispers, born of pure light and emotion, would one day rise again, not as weapons, but as beacons of hope for all of Neo-Paris.